This video is powered by the pros at Pascal Air Plumbing and Electric. Arkansas owned, Arkansas operated. GoPascal.com.
Tom, you were right up front. Listen to Brian Kelly, listen to Eli Drinkwitz, and the guy that was just talking, and Jimbo Fisher. He seemed a little fidgety when he was asked about those Bobby Petrino offensive coordinator questions.
Yeah. Hey, Tommy.
Hey.
Man, you're right. And, I'm on to you guys because I noticed how you cleverly slowed Jimbo down to half speed to play it so people can understand. No, he threw a word salad at us about what Bobby was going to do, and he used the word, hopefully, and I'm not going to get into all that. What does that mean?
Yeah.
Hey, I don't even know if Bobby Petrino is going to be on the field or in the box or just what, man. So that's going to be an interesting study all year long.
And you won't know until that first game that Texas A&M plays. And we had Olin Buchanan on yesterday. He was telling you only get one media appearance with Bobby. He was very wishy-washy yesterday. All you have to do is come out and say, he's coaching the offense, I'll have a say. But instead, he was going in circles. You
know what it smacks to me of a little bit? He's a national championship winning coach, but it smacked a little bit of insecurity. When you bring a head coach of Bobby Petrino's magnitude onto your staff, and these questions start to come up, right? And then you got to be ready to deal with them. He got a lot of Bobby Petrino questions yesterday and didn't seem super comfortable, although he touted Bobby Petrino. He's here for a reason. He's a brilliant mind. He's doing a great job in recruiting.
Right.
And all those things. So
surround yourself with smart people. But there's like this pushback, like Jimbo can't be in charge or have an input on the offense. He's the head coach. He's in charge. I mean, in terms of business, he owns the program, or he's a general manager, whatever term you want to put on it. The idea that Bobby Petrino has it carte blanche, hands off, Jimbo has no input is those are people that, to me, that have that take that just don't understand how things work.
Exactly. And Jimbo's an offensive guy and has been. And so he just said every coach on the staff has input. And Brandon Marcello asked him about what if there's a chance of like volatility or a volatile situation. And Jimbo's like, volatile? Why would you say volatile? And I wrote about this today. Have you ever been in a coach's staff meeting that there wasn't some volatility? So, these are highly driven, highly motivated guys who have their own opinions, and they voice them. They're type A's, and these things are going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, bosses and team members disagree on things all the time, and lots of walks of life. In the end, you hear it, and you flesh it out, and then someone's got to make a call. Someone's got to make a final decision.
Yeah,
That's the head coach.
If I were Jimbo, you guys have your game plan, and if the defense is doing this, we're going to do this, and let Bobby call the plays. That's what I would do.
Well, depends on how. Coordinators are often brought in to insulate the head coach. And, I don't want to say this is an arranged marriage because I don't know that they told him you got to hire Bobby Petrino. I think it just has the appearance you were told to hire somebody, and it ended up being Bobby Petrino, which is a great choice. And Bobby needs it to go well because he wants to be a head coach again. He'd like to make $10 or $15 million before he's done. Got to be a head coach to do that.
I suppose so. Well, his last stint at Missouri State, after the Arkansas game, they were amped up for that game, and they had a good plan, lost it late. They didn't have a good season the rest of the year. So at age 62, I just wonder, who would be interested in him. And he took the job with Barry Odom, and 20 days later, he went to A&M. That's his entire career pattern in a nutshell.
Well, remember when Ellis Johnson did that to him? When he first arrived at Arkansas, he was here and then went to South Carolina after about a cup and a half of coffee, and he left out.
He sure did.
So Bobby's been on both sides of that.
He has, and I'm sure Barry Odom probably, quote, understood it happens in the business.
Well, I mean, he's making more as the coordinator at A&M than Barry's making as the head coach at UNLV. So, I mean, how do you not do that if you're Bobby Petrino? Yeah.
And it's funny, I saw those two talking on the field before the Missouri State-Arkansas game this year. Like a more lengthy time period of talking, just the two of them than you would normally see. And I thought, okay.
That's something to keep tabs on, and obviously paid out for 20 days. Tom Murphy with us here, normally on the McClarty Daniel Hotline. He's live here at Radio Row at SEC Media Days. Greg Sankey got in about 50 things yesterday. One of the things he touched on was the NIL and the empty promises and state laws and also the current student-athlete model. Do you agree with what he said about some of that?
Well, I for parts of it, I was doing something else, and I didn't have my complete focus on. But he spent the majority of his time on NIL, and now I do agree with him that the mishmash of state laws and people and not being able to control what third parties that are getting into contact with students is a problem. And when I hear the word, which he said a couple of times, it's going to take Congress to come in and fix this, that scares me.
Well, there's rules and then there's laws. The governments and legislatures set laws. You're a member of the Football Writers Association. There are rules to be a member, right? I mean, I don't know how extensive that goes, but my point is the NCAA could still have rules that the members agree to. We're going to abide by them. Now, the enforcement of those rules is a different conversation, but there could at least be at the NCAA level more extensive rules, but they'd have to agree to enforce those rules.
They would, and I think it's going to take some input from all parties. I mean, the schools are going to have to be a little bit more forceful, maybe report on each other if there's irregularities going on, and I'm sure that happens some. And the conferences have to have a stricter grasp on what they're doing and the state law. And because right now, Tommy, we talked about this right when it was about to be implemented. It was going to be the wild, wild west, and that's exactly what we saw. Because
it's turned into what we feared, not what it was intended to be. And he talks about the collectives and the collective of collectives, how they're going to kind of have an association for that. But again, you're relinquishing some control, and I thought he went into some real detailed concerns about, is this going to have these collectives where they're kind of influencing coaches about who should get playing time, and he talked about promises made to these athletes that aren't kept. We all assume that if it's reported so and so is getting $1 million to do this, that they actually get the money. Well, that's not how it's always turned out so far.
It hasn't, and those words were a little bit striking, that what you just mentioned there. So you can tell it's high on his mind. Yesterday was very interesting because they brought up the police detectives who responded to the shooting here in Nashville in February or March. There was like rounds of applause and things. Yesterday was an interesting day for Greg Sankey.
Tom Murphy, normally with us on the McClarty Daniel Hotline, here with us on Radio Row in Nashville. We were talking, me and Ty were earlier, and we kind of mentioned this as you were getting ready to come on with us. Nashville and Atlanta, I think there's a growing rivalry because there's some questions about the SEC Football Championship, and once this new Dome Stadium's built in Nashville, will they have a chance to host?
Yeah.
Dallas is going to have the SEC Media Days next year. You got three great cities, big cities, in the conference footprint now with Dallas, Nashville, and Atlanta. I don't think I'm leaving anyone else out of that. I mean, that are really new, progressive, modern cities. Will we see more movement in the future with the SEC championships and the variety of sports?
Well, as we discussed, I think I'd like to see it. And the question about whether Charlotte would host the SEC championship game in football, Nashville, I thought was like, well, no, wait a second, because Greg Sankey's immediate response was Bridgestone Arena in Nashville has the contract for basketball for many, many years. So I don't think you want to like double up. And so I think maybe when the current contract runs out for Bridgestone, that maybe you do, because it's been in Tampa, it's been in New Orleans, they'll move it around. And, we've heard Memphis for baseball years ago, and maybe St. Louis, those are also in the footprint. Would Kansas City be in the footprint? I don't know, but those are also cities of sizable, and New Orleans is big too.
Nashville, Atlanta, Dallas all just have different feels to them. I mean, just more modern feels. And maybe I love going to New Orleans. The food's great, the drinks are great, but it's old and it's New Orleans. I mean, it's its own thing.
Yeah.
Nashville's done such a great job here in this downtown area in the last 10 years of bringing it to life the way it is.
Think about Razorback fans, or think about us. We were in Memphis for the bowl game, and we're here now. And you just see a comparison. Yeah. Memphis has got to get on the good foot, man. They're city leaders. I mean, we ran into a water quality issue in our hotel because I think there had been some winter storms that were a little beyond.
And there can't be even the hint or the thought in the back of your mind about safety. Safety for your players, your teams, the people you're inviting. you can't put them in an area that is perceived at any level really to be, grossly unsafe. You're not safe, and that's one thing. Memphis and other places, fight that reputation.
They do, and here we're fighting a little bit of construction. But, I put on a good face, and we're driving around and getting to the lots we need to get to. And, hey, they're treating us right. We went to a nice thing sponsored by the Nashville Predators last night. We're going to a good one by the Titans tomorrow, and there's a concert right here in the area tonight. And so they've set up a nice kind of
He's not going to
menu.
go. He's going to take a nap like a bum.
No, I'm going to a dinner tonight. I may come down. I don't know. But here's the thing. This event, this media event, I don't think fans really care about where it's hosted and what dinners we're having. They could care less about any of that. But one thing that is evident, this has outgrown at least the facility they used in Hoover. If they're going, I can't see this thing going back to Hoover because the conference has outgrown that facility that they had it at for years at the Winfrey.
Interesting point. I hadn't looked at considered it from a space standpoint.
Space, rooms. I mean, you got 2 more teams coming in.
Yeah.
Rooms required, airports, traffic, shuttles. You need, this is just so much bigger and more grandiose here.
It is, and, I had hoped that we would not see the SEC Network set right in the back of our room, in the main media room, but I think they like having all that activity in their background. And
it only feel like you're at media days when you're watching.
You do. It does. Yeah. And so there's an ambiance to that.
Yep.
Every once in a while they break out into hysterical, crazy laughter in the back of the room, and a coach will be up there. It's a little weird.
All right, so Sam Pittman's here tomorrow. What's important for him to convey to the assembled media?
Oh, I don't know, that they've done well with their roster management, adding players, that they're going to be a viable team. Every appearance you make, it's a recruiting pitch, right? So if kids are watching that, they want to see that Sam Pittman's his self, that he's funny, engaging, and Sam Pittman doesn't miss a mark when it comes to that. He's always self-deprecating and seemingly jovial to the people, and so presenting himself as he is always important for his image and their recruiting philosophy. And so touting Arkansas's good players. Why shouldn't KJ Jefferson be the first team quarterback all SEC? Why shouldn't Rocket Sanders be
stump for that?
Bo Limmer at center, I see he's getting some activity on some first teams as well.
Latham will be in consideration as well.
Latham will, and they've got to be a much better defensive team. So I think we're going to hear some words about that.
If Rocket and KJ end up both first team all SEC, and that won't happen because Jaden Daniels will be the quarterback, should fans expect more this year? If you're 2 of your best players are first team all SEC,
say it, Dom. Say 10 wins.
Does that equate?
Just say 10 wins.
I think fans should expect more than 7 wins. It's maybe 8. But everyone knows what their schedule is. The middle part of that schedule is so brutal.
But you should win every game in the state. You're going to be a betting line favorite on every game played in the borders of Arkansas.
Yeah, so they got Mississippi State coming in and
Auburn and Missouri.
They should win all 3 of those games.
BYU would be the next you would discuss. You're 34.5 ahead on the betting line with Western Carolina to open the year. My point is, right now, you should expect to win all 7 of those games. None of those 3 SEC teams or BYU are a team that you shouldn't expect to beat.
Okay, I'm with you there.
That's 7. So now how do you go steal 1 on the road or 2 on the road?
Tommy's trying to change your season predictions when you come out with
that's my thinking right now.
I'm willing to listen to any input, and I understand your thinking. And, yes, they've got to win swing games. Think about last year's swing games, and they went 2-4 or whatever in them. Yeah. And this is the year. If they go 4-2, it can be a pretty special season. But Arkansas is in a position where when would you ever say they're going to beat Alabama, when they're going to beat Alabama and LSU and somebody in a given year so you can win the conference?
Well, Brian Kelly talked yesterday about when you bring this many players in from the portal on defense, it's concerning, and you don't know until you get out there. Well, who else brought a lot of players in on the portal on defense?
As he said that, I'm going, that applies to the team I cover because that is a lot of dudes. Hey, it worked out last year. Drew Sanders and Dwight McLaughlin, and there were more. They were some good ads, and I think if they continue whatever it was that they did, and John Morgan and Trajan Jeffcoat and Antonio Greer, Jaheim Thomas, Jaheim Singletary, all these guys can help them. Yeah. Snacks Johnson, and there's a ton of them. Walcott, the receivers, then they have a chance to be pretty good.
Let's hope that ends up being the case. Last thing I want to ask you about, the gambling is something he approached, and he didn't reference Brad Bohannon by name, but that was the incident that we all knew he was talking about. Are we going to see another big-time incident pop up within the SEC this next year? Because I don't think we're done with this thing.
I don't know. I haven't given much thought to that, but I will say this: that was a good lesson. Because don't you know, when schools had their compliance meetings with their kids, after that, they're like, look, one incident like this can happen to you. And so, don't do it. And I don't know. Sometimes the lure of making some bet that you really feel,
or just giving information to a buddy,
Yeah. So the giving information part is a philosophical principle that I don't know how you.
You know how many times I asked one of my classmates in school, "Hey, is this guy playing?" "No, man, he can't play." I wouldn't say anything, but you know how many times, you know how easy that was for me to do in class. I didn't bet on it, but I asked them. They told me.
Super easy.
It's not that hard.
Yeah. So how do you prevent someone from telling someone else that guy's hasn't been practicing all week?
I mean, y'all get the questions, too. Everybody assumes that we know and have the insight on injuries and all that stuff, and we most often don't. But, now you just assume everyone that asks you a really pointed question about personnel is wanting to know for wagering purposes,
Wow. Yeah.
It's the world we live in, unfortunately.
Clay's told the story where he kept getting calls from someone in Oklahoma about an injury, and he finally figured out the guy was betting on it. He stopped giving him information. He thought he was just a fan, but the guy was making bets each week.
Unreal.
Trying to figure that out.
Well, I've never been really much of a betting guy. The only time I thought I was going to place a bet, I was going to pick the Falcons to lose to the Saints. And this has been years and years ago because the quarterback was hurt. And I think Billy Joe Tolliver was going to quarterback for us. And we blocked a punt, returned it for a touchdown, and covered. And so I didn't bet it. I was going to put $1,000 on that game. And I didn't bet it. And if I had, I would have lost it.
That's good you didn't bet it.
Lesson learned.
That's good you didn't bet it.
All right, well, Tom, good to see you. Maybe we'll find some time. Normally you're here with us on Thursday, so maybe we'll find some more time on Thursday to catch up again.
Yeah, we'll work it out. Thanks, guys.
BetOnline is your #1 source for all your betting needs. Get the latest odds, lines, and matchup reports for baseball, boxing, golf, and more. BetOnline continues to be the fastest and easiest way to place your wagers, including live betting and your favorite casino and card games available to play right from your phone. Head to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today and get in on the action. Remember to use our promo code BELIEVE. That's BLEAV for your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet online, where the game starts.